Welcome, everybody, to our bonus session today, um, in honoring of the fun that we have had for Power of You. I'm so excited. We have our special guest, Louisa, joining us today. And she is an intuitive astrologer and the creator of Feel Good Astrology. And I will include the link either in the description of this video or somewhere, wherever you're watching, that you get to follow and subscribe to her highly viewed channel, Feel Good Astrology on YouTube. And today's topic, and why I invited Louisa to join, is to have her to share with us how shamanic journeying has elevated her work, her business, and her personal power. So I cannot wait to dive in. Welcome, Louisa.
Oh, hi. Thanks for that lovely introduction. And thanks for inviting me. I'm really honored. It's such a blessing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to have you here. I would just love to jump right into it and get started. Can you share with me and everybody watching today, how have you got started with Feel Good Astrology?
Oh, crikey. Such a long time ago. I mean, my whole astrological journey started when I was about 6. And then I started like reading and learning around 11 and then formally training at 19. But I kept my own life going. I didn't out myself as an astrologer until I was 40. So in the meantime, I would be like doing birth charts for people, testing it. It was like I put myself in an apprenticeship, so I would just work for free and keep learning and keep, if somebody died, if somebody got married, if somebody met somebody or broke up, I did charts for everything so that I could see what patterns were going on. And, after about 20, no, 30 years, I realized I had quite a pattern. And I was living in Bali when I was 36. And I'd got really naffed off with the corporate world. In my real time, I was actually working as a corporate trainer. I had my own business as a corporate trainer. I used to deliver all sorts of things like communication skills, presentation skills, and I used to tie it in with subliminals because in my actual professional career at that time I worked for banks and building societies, insurance companies, really big blue chips all around the UK. But I used to put subliminals. I trained as a hypnotherapist and an NLP coach because I was too afraid to out myself as an astrologer. So I was like, oh, I really want to help people. I really want to work with people at a real sort of psychological level and deep down and try and create real change. And the closest I could get to being woo woo was to study hypnotherapy and NLP, because that seemed a little bit more business-like. And so that's the route I took. And that opened me up a little bit. And I realized quite early on, I'm not really built for the corporate world. And so, when I worked for myself, I made all these corporate programs, also things that would help people on a personal level. So I wasn't just teaching people how to sell more, but I was teaching people how they could sell themselves as well. And so I did that for a really long time. I loved it. But then something else was calling me, and it was time to really get into my purpose. And so I took a trip, like lots of people do. Some people do inward trips, and for me, I just cleared off out of Europe and went to live in Bali, Indonesia, and I loved it. And so I really explored tarot reading, astrology. I was doing lots of hypnotic work. And because I was really deep diving into it, I went through a series of rapid changes, which is what happens when you work with clients. Anywhere where you're supporting clients and helping them, and sort of encouraging them, every word that you say is felt backwards. It's like, I think people say with coaching, it's like buy one, get one free. Like people buy a reading with you, but you're getting something out of it, because you're working at an unconscious level. And yes, I went through quite an uplifting time, but it really all changed when I met my husband, which was just, while I was in Bali. I just came back. And a whole series of weird events happened that kept me in the UK for a really long time. like running out of money and being at my parents and thinking, what have I done? You know, but it was what I needed to meet my husband. And, you know, friends put us in touch. We wouldn't, I don't know how we'd have met otherwise, but like it was boom, all of a sudden, Feel Good Astrology started to come up. You know, my husband was a podcaster. He worked with a really famous astrologer, Steve Judd, who's really well known now. So they worked together, and I contacted Carl and said, "Do you need an astrologer for your new age radio station? You know, because I'm here in the UK, I can help." And so, you know, I sent him a little invitation, and he got back to me and kind of, wow, he kind of proposed very quickly. You know, like within a few days of us meeting, that was it. We were inseparable, and so that was what brought me into outing myself as an astrologer. You know, the feeling of being with him. He is another sort of projector in human design, and we both love sharing ideas and teaching. And he supported me really to be myself. And so in our communications, you know, Feel Good Astrology was born. It had to feel good. It had to support people. You know, I realized over the years. A lot of astrology teachers are doom and gloomers. You know, like I remember buying a book years ago to learn about the moon position. And I remember, I mean, I was a teenager at the time and I'd bought a book. And in the moon in Pisces, it said, this is the worst moon sign you can have. It will ruin you. You'll become an alcoholic. You know, it really sort of pulled on all the worst stereotypes of moon in Pisces. And I remember, you know, it has an effect. The words you use make such a difference. And so I was determined to find a way to use astrology that could uplift people and help them find freedom and clarity, which is just what I want to have in my own life. And it's fitted in with motherhood. And so, yeah, my husband and I, we both work from home. We both broadcast things that are about supporting people to help them feel good. And you know, we homeschool or unschool our kids. We've got three now. And yeah, for me, it's a lifestyle, you know. And every now and again, I have a little stop. You know, I check myself out. You know, if ever it feels a bit too heavy, you know, if ever, you know, I might feel a bit overwhelmed sometimes, because you know we're always sort of changing and growing. And if it doesn't feel good, then I kind of go inside until it does feel good, and then I come back out again. Because again, I think it's kind of insincere. You know, I know there's lots of people who are out there, you know, sort of giving advice, but not really living by it. And so, yeah, it's yeah, it's a long waffly answer, Whitney. Sorry, but it's just really how I live
You're
my
so
life.
good.
It has to be
Yeah.
about feeling good, and that's what's happening.
I I love it. And don't be
Thanks.
sorry. That was so like beautifully wrapped up. And there's such an eloquent way that when you speak, I can listen to you all day. And that was really short amount of time and how you have illustrated, it's a very, very lifelong journey. And this is
Yeah,
exactly speaking to the fact that you're on the path of your soul's purpose. And if I might add, Carl, it's a good man. He sees
thank you.
what's good and he goes for it.
Mm.
Well done. And I just want to share a little tidbit how I got the pleasure of texting a little bit back and forth with your 6-year-old.
Oh gosh, yeah. Solomon.
And whatever you're doing is working because his communication skills and writing and reading, like
Mm.
arguably, is better than my 9-year-old.
He's been reading since he was 4, bless him. A couple of
Wow.
days ago, we went into a shop just to buy some pens. We were out with friends and we're at a restaurant. They were getting a bit bored, so I thought I'd get some pens and stuff. And and he says these really funny things. We walked into the shop and he says, "Oh, I do love the smell of a good convenience store." It's like 6 years old. Like, why would he talk like that? But yeah, he's got a very good vocabulary and he's quite funny. Funny
An
little
old
thing.
soul, very year old soul.
Yeah. Yeah, really,
Hmm.
truly. Yeah.
So, this is so enlightening and it really, really jazzed me up when I hear a story like yours, because you've already have been um, do what you do today for others, for yourself, like long, long, long time ago. You touched on NLP,
Mm.
hypnotherapy, ways to be safe as woo-woo, because woo-woo is still
Yeah.
kind of like a bit of a faux pas. Um, so this leads to my next question. Have you shamanic journey before we met?
Not completely in the way that you do it. Um, but I'm not. you know, I'm not unknown to sort of guided meditations and things like that. And obviously, in my hypnosis training, and I do timeline therapy. So I was trained in that. So I'm used to going into sort of hypnotic trances and subliminals and leading people in those. But I really like your shamanic journeys because there is always a real sense of purpose. So yeah, I was really ready for it. My body understood it straight away. You know, I imagine someone that's not been in the process before might have some questions, and really, I just think you have a chance to sit and connect with your breath. And actually, the one of the beauties of it is you're guiding. I mean, that's why I wasn't afraid. But you guided me beautifully, and you still do continue to guide me to unlock and sort of journey into different, yeah, to journey into different parts of my unconscious or my body consciousness in such a way that allows me to unlock things if they're a bit stuck. And so that's been really, really helpful. So it
Oh,
wasn't a
it makes me so
surprise,
happy.
but it was uh, a beautiful surprise at the same time because
Mhm.
you've taken me to new places in a new way.
Oh, wow. Because I
Mm.
guess you were sharing like how you how you walk your people.
Mm.
I feel like such a moth, your people,
No, 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 don't worry.
right? It's just like in your description how you walk your people through
Mm,
their uncovering,
mm,
you know, to their purpose, to you know to discover who they are, to
mm.
know themselves better. You know, these are all very similar components and
Yeah.
why I love shamanic journeying. So it's actually very enlightening at the same time because there's so many different ways that you could go through the different steps, but transformation to where you want to go is the
Mm.
same. So that's very, very interesting. So I love to hear, well, if I just want to say thank you for sharing that, how the shamanic journey that, you know, we do together has taken you to different places. So then I just want to lead you into getting your take of how has, you know, our shamanic journeying then elevated your work or business or personal power.
Well, I can. You have helped me to prepare for different aspects of my work, and to face different aspects of my work, because yeah, I mean, that you know, sometimes when you're kind of you've got something that you're unconscious about,
Mhm.
you know, and you suspect that there's something there, and yeah, and maybe there's a part of your conscious mind that's fighting you, so you don't get to see it, you don't get the full reveal. Well, in the interactions and the sessions that we've done, and in the group work that we've done, I realize I've come up against myself many times, you know, and you've created a really safe space so that I can explore it. I mean, in the recent group that I've been in, I think, is it 3 people or 4 that have broken down, including myself twice. And and when I say broken down, it doesn't you know, it doesn't mean to say it's a traumatic thing, but you've created the space for us to feel ourselves really in a real way, and to just admit where we are. It's just been a really lovely sort of feminine space, and it feels like I've got sisters around me, you know. So it's something for me that I think has been lacking in my life. You know, that sort of sisterly energy, and I realise I don't give it to myself. I don't give it to myself enough. So it's really been a gift. It's really been quite special. And actually, we were just talking before you hit record, and I just realised I'd had another deeper insight just in talking with you before. I realised, there's another resistance coming up. So I'm like, okay, I need to solve this. So I guess one of the things that's really helped me is noticing what feels comfortable, and then because you know what comfort feels like, you can then feel what discomfort feels like. And so when I'm feeling uncomfortable, you know, it's obvious that there's some resistance coming up, and I think if we could all do this for ourselves, we would, wouldn't we? I look at
Yeah.
other people's charts, and it's very much like the Chiron figure that I talk about in astrology, like Chiron, the wounded healer. Like we can help other people come into their own healing, but often we can't do ourselves. It's a bit like, trying to get an itch on your back. Um, Not everyone can scratch their back. And so you help me get to these parts that I can't get to on my own. And I'm really grateful to you for that.
Oh, thank you, Louisa. I am so grateful for you. Like, it's such a pleasure that we get to have this beautiful partnership,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, I feel that.
And just a quick plug in. I forgot to mention from the start is that, for anyone watching right now, stay tuned because Louisa is going to share some of her magic, how we get to use the energy of this Venus retrograde for ourselves. So, just a little plug there. And thank you. Thank you for that beautiful share, Louisa. This also leads to um, some of the questions that I have for you to really share that experience to what it's like working in the container that I offer. And so that others watching could have a sense of like what to expect, from your experience. So thank you for that. So I guess let's just rewind a little bit. How did you first started to decide to work with me to begin with?
Um, wow. We'd worked together, and I instantly liked you and felt at ease. And yeah, I guess it was that pull, that the strength of the relationship actually, that because I didn't realize I needed to work with you. That's the thing. I haven't really invested in myself for a long time, or considered where I might need to grow so much. Because I'm an avid reader, I listen to loads of podcasts, and because I'm a trainer by trade, I'm always thinking, I can learn that, I can learn that, I can learn that. And so I haven't really put myself in a classroom. I really haven't put myself in a classroom for a long time, and so our relationship, the invitation, and it all just came together, um, you know, and I attended one of your sessions initially. You invited me along to see what it was like and how I felt in it, and the container that you talk about, I think is really safe. What I'm going to share is kind of odd. Um, I've never really truly lost full consciousness with anyone. Obviously, I've done loads and loads of hypnotherapy. I've worked, I trained with Richard Bandler, Paul McKenna, Michael Neal, like loads of like really strong up there, well known, uh, you know, sort of change experts. And yet I've never completely zoned out or kind of like come out of consciousness. Sometimes in hypnosis, you can completely forget where you are, and so on and so forth. And I've never done that. I've never gone into a trance deep enough. And yet I felt really safe with you. There's been many times where what was needed was for me to kind of pass out so that you're touching a part of my body that is actually still awake, but the conscious part of me that is unwilling to make changes falls asleep. And so there's a lot of trust there, so I've fallen asleep many times. And afterwards, I'm always very sort of British about it and very kind of, oh, I'm so sorry. Especially in the group, because I've fallen asleep. Everyone else has like reported back with what's gone on. But just because I fell asleep doesn't mean to say that nothing happened, because I still felt the shifts. And then new things happen, so yeah, it's much deeper than you'd expect, is what I'd say. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Oh.
And actually, the very first time I worked with you, you mentioned about yellow and the importance of yellow, and I changed my my YouTube icon. Like my I don't know, like my profile picture on it, and I put a yellow background on it, and all of a sudden my channel subs started to go up. So, I was like, wow, how did she do that? But I wear yellow a lot now. And yeah, so I mean, things did start to improve actually after the very first session that I did, when you did that beautiful painting for me and sort of explained, the shamanic painting. So things started to change around that time.
Oh my God. So that's juicy.
Did you know that? Did you?
Well, I never really asked, so no. So
Yeah, and I never
maybe,
really thought about it. So it never occurred to
yeah.
me. But like when, sometimes you do need to have these conversations to realize actually that, because I think a lot of development happens subtly. And so you could blink and miss it because it's so subtle. Because,
Mm.
we are talking about subtle energies, but it just so happens that I'm subtly recreating a new path. And then when you look back at how everything has changed, yeah, it's definitely changing.
Oh my gosh. This is my favorite part,
Go
right?
on.
So let me just ask you then, any
Mm.
other expected or unexpected results that you could think of as as a result of our working together?
Yeah, I'm about to challenge myself in a way that I haven't been ready to up until now. I've used things like kids, the kids are home, I'm so busy. I've used loads and loads of excuses over the years to not face things I know about myself. And I think, I don't want to say, oh, I think I've got there because I know that, it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. But one thing that I've allowed myself to do over the last 9 or 10 months is to kind of fall apart a little bit, to not hold on to my original way of doing everything, to let, like, to create some space so something new can come in. And there are lots and lots of new ideas, and lots of, I mean, it's still very fluid because astrologically, I'm going through a lot of changes. And the world's going through lots of changes right now. And so I am kind of juggling it in the air, but I know that the plan is coming together. And I know if I come back in 6 months' time, which by the way, I'm very happy to do, I know that if I come back in 6 months' time and let you know about what's changed, I know the changes will be big, much bigger than they've been in the last year. So I'm already feeling it. It's bringing up some last minute, what's the word, hesitancies, but it's good. It's really good.
That is so magical. That is so magical. I cannot wait to see the next thing you're going to share with the world because,
Okay, that's when I start getting, oh, then my resistances start coming up. But go on.
those are good resistance because those are like the pressure cooker of the contraction before you get to
Yeah.
whoosh, right?
Yes.
And for people who don't know, I've not shared, which I just remembered, even the way how you and I connected, because I actually had been the first one that had sought you out,
Yeah.
for your work
Yeah.
because I found you on YouTube and I've been dabbling into different videos. It's so accessible now. You just have to do a little quick
It's
search and then you
easy,
have a
isn't it?
whole list of results, right? And just the way how you explain how to work with the energy of the planets, the current movement and the current climate, it just hits me where I understand on a soul level. I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I know how I get to use this energy properly for me. And so I knew I needed, not that I needed, but I really wanted to have you to help me with get to my destiny the year that we connected
Yeah.
in the business. And that's how we first got together. And I too just fangirl you to, can we be friends?
That's so funny.
And so I'm just so grateful you said yes.
Mm.
If you watched the movie Step Brothers, I don't know.
Yes, I
All
have seen
right.
that.
It's one of the most funniest movie that I've ever watched. And if for anyone who can resonate, this is the scene of like, do you want to do karate in the garage?
Mm.
It was that type of moment that I
Yeah,
had.
like, do you want to do this? Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I
I
mean,
know.
like in our astrology, Whitney, your sun is pretty much in opposition to a lot of stuff I've got in Pisces. So, I think what's really helpful for the dynamic is you're offering me something that I really can't access myself. And so I can access a lot of this Pisces energy that maybe you can't access. But yet, like Pisces and Virgo, the energies of Pisces and Virgo are very much about being of service and of helping and lifting up humanity. And so I think we help each other to see ourselves from a different
Mm.
perspective.
That is, I just got goosebumps as you were saying
And
that.
I think
Those
we've
are
got
always.
and I've got a lot of Sagittarius, and I think you've got a lot of Gemini going on. So we really do show a kind of opposite look of each, like we can reflect back what what we need to see. So I think that's really helpful.
So, it's funny because you're able to like so eloquently to articulate the charts and how they match up. But then for me, I'm like, I know this is our like souls reuniting.
Yeah. I think this is my next thing actually, Whitney, is for and I think this is yeah, definitely this is one of the ways that one of the next things that I'm going to be developing, I guess, through you. I realize I've been on head on a stick. I've been like a brain walking around in possession of my body, but not really being embodied. And I realized at the
Mm.
weekend, I don't know if you can see, but I've got a little bit of an eye injury going on. And I think it's where I've just been so focused that I kind of actually, a blood vessel burst in my eye. It's like, I can't take it anymore. It's getting too tight in here. And I realized I need to actually, and I can do this. And I stopped doing this. This is the crazy thing, is I stopped being an intuitive with my whole body. And yet for many years, because I also studied Reiki and other things and studied with a crystal healer as well. And I've kind of denied that aspect of myself. I guess being a mum and my kids are from 6 to 13. So in the last 13 years, I've just been continuously holding children and kind of just giving them healing, always been in that space. But a few years ago, I had a bit of a shock, and I think I'm pretty sure that my body's been quite locked up since then. I just didn't want to feel anymore. It felt so much that I just couldn't like bear to feel anymore. And so I've really been like this head on a stick. And about a year and a half ago, I stopped breastfeeding finally. I'd been breastfeeding from one child to another to another. And it's sort of until they were ready. In the end, I had to kick them all off. Um, but I'd been breastfeeding for a long time. And I think when I stopped breastfeeding, that added into this like a stick, like a head on a stick, just
Mm.
very sort of disembodied. And so I know that Feel Good Astrology now has to be full bodied. It can't, I can't just do it through my mind and through my psychic awareness. I have to also use my body intuition as well. So I know that's going to be coming out. I'm letting that guard
Oh,
down.
I
Um,
love it.
I
I
knew
love
you'd love it.
it. I do. I so love it. And, I'm going to do a little plug there. It's also the reason why I love shamanic journeying. And also, we've done a lot of womb healing.
Yeah.
And these are all the clearings. So you get to be in body because there's so
Mm,
much body wisdom. And this is also what makes us human in this body form to be
yeah.
human.
Mm.
So I think it's so powerful. I cannot wait for that to see that through you.
Thank you.
Now, before we digress, because we could just talk all day. I love talking to
Absolutely. I'd
you.
be really happy to.
Oh, so this is a little selfish question.
Go on.
Like, what would you like to share? Anybody watching that are on the fence of working with me, what would you want to say about that?
Oh, for anyone that sat on the fence, um, Oh, crikey. Because I can be a little bit confrontational at times. Like the first thing that came up for me is what what resistances are coming up in you? That's the question I would ask. Is what resistance is? Because I think you work at such a subtle but powerful level, Whitney, that I think bodies and minds can pick up that big changes can happen, and I think and given that I'm pretty sure that we're all connected, we're absolutely connected. I think people know ahead of time that they'll probably go through changes, and so if there's a hesitation, I think it's because there might be an aspect of where you're afraid of going through the changes, and so I
Mm.
guess my question would be like if you're afraid of the changes and yet you like I guess right, I'm thinking now in terms of like NLP treatments and all sorts, but as I tuned in, because that's what I've just done is I've tuned into the energy of somebody that might be on the fence, and I think it's almost like you're in two camps. You want the change, and yet there's a part of you that doesn't want the change, and both parts of you are working to keep you safe. And so the part of you that doesn't want to change and go through the potentials of what Whitney's offering, I think are, they've come from a really old time. They've come from, like the oldest of wounds, that we really hold on to. And those programs are really, really strong. And yet there's a part of you that's brought Whitney into your consciousness and into your life. And there'll be a reason for that because she's representing something new and fresh, and that there is another way. I guess what I would say is there's no problem. You can't actually go through any deep changes until you're ready for them. And as beautiful and as powerful as Whitney is, she can't force you into those changes at all. So there's nothing to be afraid of, is what I would say. It might feel like it's threatening. You might feel like there's something threatening behind the scenes, but and I know from my astrology, not my astrology, my hypnotherapy studies, you wake up out of a trance if you're not comfortable. Like I've said, I've fallen asleep in the work
Mm.
that I've done with Whitney. So I think Whitney works at a very subtle level and powerful level, and she'll help you go through those changes at just the right time for you. And it might not just be in one day or 1 week. It might not be in one season. It might take years. I don't know. But she'll work at the right speed for you and your body and for how safe you can feel in that moment. So that's my take on it. Hope that was okay.
Oh my gosh, it's better than okay.
Well, I was using my full body there. I was like, okay, what's going on here?
That is magical and powerful at the same time. And I so thank you for that. And thank you for coming on and sharing, your experience of our work together and
Yeah.
your take on how Shamanic Journey has impacted, your work, business, and personal power. So for what I want to do next is a little bit of an invitation for me just to share what I have going on. And
Mhm.
then I would love for Louisa to stay on to, share a little bit of her magic with us and whatever topic that you want to share, I'm sure it's good. But I think the right now at this time, which is March 4th, 2025, we're in this Venus retrograde. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that's something you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but
I
before
just,
we
oh,
but
go on.
before we do that,
So I was so
let me
willing
just
there.
right. I know. Let me just plug in a little bit. Thank you for sharing, to somebody who might be on the fence. And so this is exactly the reason why I'm offering these free 30-minute strategy calls right now in promotion of my new program coming up. I call it Essence. It's a
Go on.
6-month mentorship.
Mhm.
And I will share the link to it, but the core of this program, it's also 6 months, is because I want to bring you back to the essence of what makes you you. And
Oh.
so when we come back to our essence, the most powerful and effective way that I know is through your own spiritual power. So we're going to dive in and expand your spiritual power in a way that you get to learn the tools and my framework and the structure of how you get to lead yourself through those moments of resistance
Mm.
and the circumstances that might be in front of you, like that life throws at you.
Yeah.
There's never a dull moment,
Oh my goodness,
but
no.
right, it's how you lead yourself through in that level of awareness to start. So, a lot of what's unconscious to us, when you don't know, you don't know. So,
Mm.
this is why we go into the basis of the archetypal distorted feminine, distorted masculine, so that you get to learn these ancient teachings shamanically and also in the womb consciousness work so that you get to have a window to understand what these distortion can look like in your own belief system, in your own patterns, in your own behavior, and to realize how they might be self-sabotage the very thing that you want to invite and allow in to your
Mm.
life, to what you want to create. If it's money, if it's happiness, if it's fulfillment, if it's inner peace, you have the power
Mm.
to make that change for yourself. And this is why I'm so excited to have put together Essence 6 months of weekly calls where we are going to come into circle in support of each other. We're going to go through all the womb clearing of ancestral healing and a deep dive into what boundaries look, where define feminine look, define masculine look, and also where you're being in codependence with others. Because when we look into all these clearing and all these work to coming back to your essence, it's how can you now relate and connect with people outside of yourself in a
Mm.
very loving but powerfully in your own energy type of way. And so we're going to go through, there is specific framework to work through that, and also specific integration, what it looks like, what it means for you. How can you bring yourself to a higher level of consciousness? And then for the first time ever, I'm decided that it's time to step into teaching you and how you get to do that for yourself shamanically, and how you get to learn how you can also work in this way with your clients if you wish, how you
Mm.
could take someone on a shamanic journey. So, how to lead one, and how you get to work in other people's energy shamanically to move your work to the next level. So, that's the intention.
Mm.
Um, I will include the link. So you get to schedule in my calendar and have a strategy call with me. And I will help you the best I can within that time to see where you could carve more to empower yourself to grow spiritually. And also the invite if you like to join me on this 6 months mentorship.
That's amazing. That sounds really good. I love that so much. Funny thing is when you're just about to say that, I wanted to say, to anyone that was sat on the fence, they should try one of your smaller packages, because like
Mm.
you're painting your delicious painting, but there you've already answered that because you're giving a free taster. I mean, there you go.
Yeah,
It's
thank you,
amazing.
Louisa.
I love that.
Thank you for my little plug.
That's really good. A really, really good plug.
And now let's go into the juicy part. And thank you for agreeing to sharing some of your
Mm.
magic here in this space with my audience and my community. So, what is the topic that you would walk us
Mm.
through today?
Well, there's a few things. I'm talking a lot actually at the moment on my channel. I'm recording every day because there's loads and loads of world changes. But the big thing at the moment, obviously, is Venus retrograde. I actually recorded a program, like episode 1 today, and I'm going to do part 2 in a couple of weeks' time, because Venus retrograde is much bigger than just, oh, it's a planet going retrograde. Have you heard of like, Venus is called the morning star. She's also called the evening star. Like astronomers, they might look at her in the sky and they might say, oh, look, there's the morning star or there's the evening star. And they're referring to Venus. And so there are
Mhm.
certain times when Venus is the evening star. And then there are certain times when Venus is the morning star. And this is all sort of astronomical and also fits in with astrology. But for approximately 9 months of her cycle, which is interesting because it's like a gestation period, FYI. It's a very, very
Ooh.
feminine. But she spends time being the evening star. That's what she's been up until now. And she's going to be the evening star for a little bit longer. And if you think of astrology, you've got two signs associated with Venus. You've got Taurus, which is the zodiac sign ruled by Venus, and you've also got Libra, which is also ruled by Venus. And so Taurus is known as being quite bodily and quite earthy and quite grounded, whereas Venus, the sort of Libran Venus is an air sign. She's a lot more fluid, a lot more, she's not embodied, put it that way. She's free to float in the sky. And so, you've got one that's sort of grounded and one that's up there. So it really describes the two different, like, personalities of Venus. And so we've been through a phase that has been associated with the Libran Venus, the airy Venus, the more spiritual energy of Venus, which is, I think, very much about like a higher harmonic of Venus. I think it's very much about, are we being compassionate, forgiveness? Do we have a lot of forgiveness going on in our life? Are we able to tune into energies and to relate to people in a beautiful way? So it's a sort of very sort of high level Venusian energy. The evening star, when she's there, she's there to kind of comfort us and nudge us as a mother. She's like nudging us a little bit to help us and to help us as a woman, but also the femininity within everyone. Obviously men have a feminine side too, but she's about to go into the morning star, which is more related to the Taurus energy, and this all starts, in fact, I'm going to be sharing this in my video part 2 that'll come out in a couple of weeks, but just to give you a little heads up, and I do recommend reading Ariel Gutman's book. I can't remember what it's called. It's called Venus Star Point, maybe, which really talks about it because she studied all the Venus patterns. Did you know that the Venus cycle, when you look at how she's moving through the zodiac, then she goes retrograde, and then she goes forwards again. Every time she goes retrograde, when you look at those retrograde points, it creates a 5-pointed star. And it's a 5-pointed star that goes around and around and around and around for eons. And so you get a 5-pointed star. You'll get a Venus retrograde that hits the same point of a star every 8 years. And so these are called star points. And again, I'm not stealing the work of Ariel Gutman. I mean, I really do recommend you get the book, or listen to the book on audiobook. And if you're interested, you can, and if you know about astrology, you can actually like plot them onto your birth chart and so on and so forth. And I will be showing people how they can do that,
Ooh.
within the work that I do. But she's about to go into her morning star phase, and that's coming up around the time of the Venus Cazimi, when the Sun and Venus connect. And that's happening this March on the 22nd or 23rd, according to where you are. And it's interesting, like the story of right. Well, I don't want to say this like this is how things are, because I know everyone's got different belief systems. But people talk about the birth of Christ and Jesus being born on Christmas Day. When we actually look at the sun, like the sun being reborn, that happens on Christmas Day, pretty much in astrology. So around the time of, so it's not to say that Jesus in the Bible is made up or anything. I'm not saying that at all. But astrologically, when we look at the sun on the sun's journey, the sun goes we've got two equinox points. So we've got the spring, the start of spring on March the 20th, usually. And then we've got the start of autumn. They're the two equinox points. That's at the end of September. But we've also got the summer solstice and the winter solstice. Now, you and I are in the northern hemisphere. So our winter solstice is usually around the 21st of December, 22nd of December. When the sun hits that point, it's kind of died. We don't really. It's recognized. It's representing the like longest night of the year, and we don't see it rising in the same way. It kind of rests for a few days. If you look at, I don't know, I need to find a good link. I'll send you a link that you can attach this video because, there's so much complicated astronomical stuff.
Yeah.
I worry about articulating it correctly, but
But I
essentially
understand.
the sun starts to come back on the 25th every year. And that's when we see it again. And so Venus, Mars also does this as well, by the way, but Venus, when she, there's a time in her cycle where she disappears. So the evening star is going to disappear on the 22nd, 23rd of March. So she's kind of going to bed. She could be going into that tomb and then being brought back to life. When you look at different mythology and religions, there's stories of Inanna, all sorts of different stories, right the way through all of our traditions of gods and goddesses dying, going into, you could go into a womb space, a tomb. Interesting that womb and tomb rhyme, incidentally, but they rise back up 3 days later. Well, Venus, she's going to die. She dies on the 23rd, and then she's reborn, but she's reborn in her new embodied self, the Taurian self. It's not to say it's got anything to do with Taurus, but it's more of a Taurus expression. So, the Venus that's coming is a lot more impassioned, a lot more in her body, a lot more sexual, I would say, as opposed to spiritual love. She's more flesh love. And there's a lot more in terms of appearance. There's a lot more going on in terms of, being in your physical body. So we are coming up to, so when Venus goes direct again from the 13th of April, when she's moving forwards again from where she's gone back into Pisces, she's going to be moving forwards a lot more dramatically and with a lot more grounding. So if you really resonate with Venus in your chart, or if you love the idea of the planet Venus, which is about love and flow and well-being, then your story about love and flow is about to change. And it's just part of this normal kind of gestation pattern. We have 9 months kind of spiritual and, working with our energies at a higher level. And then we go back into the body. So again, this is like a shamanic journey, Whitney. We are, and also Venus is going from Aries into Pisces. So Aries is very direct and masculine, and it's kind of rough and tumble, and also doesn't suffer fools gladly. But, Venus is going back into Pisces, which is all like wide open consciousness. It's like completely open. The sign of Pisces is just so absolutely open and vulnerable and and deep and unconscious. So Venus is going back into the mystery, and then she's kind of reconnecting with herself, and then she's moving forwards but bringing the mystery with her in a really direct way. So I think this is the most shamanic Venus retrograde we could go through for quite some time. And the last time we went through this, because it's a repeating pattern, was in 2017, March 2017. Yeah, the 4th of March, she went retrograde, and she went direct on the 15th of April. So 8 years ago. So it's almost to the day, this whole retrograde period. And also like the the theories of, the Venus retrograde allegedly goes retrograde 40 days and 40 nights. It's actually 42 this time, but there are lots of stories in mythology about 40 days and 40 nights, like going into the wilderness or going into a cave and, going inside. And that's what she's doing for us.
Wow.
So as above, so below, you might see that things are changing, your consciousness is changing. But I would invite anyone right now, if this is of interest to them, to journal, to go deep inside. This is the ultimate in shamanic femininity. This is womanhood 101. Like to go deep inside. I'm writing. I would like to say I've written it already, but I'm always running late on things. So I'm actually writing 40 statements or intentions for myself, and I'm going to be saying them to myself in a meditative state for the next 40 days. And we do have 40 days left because it's 2 days in
Yeah.
already. So I'm going to use that as my sort of journaling, my journaling path. So I think
Wow.
this is just time to go inside and
Yeah.
reconnect and know that, from the 26th, 27th, she's coming back.
Wow. Let me just start off by now I understand the importance of this Venus retrograde. There is so much noise around it, but until you explain it the way that you do, and now I understand it.
Bless you.
And thank you, Louisa. That was so beautifully explained. And if I could just make mention, the first ever goddess energy, which to me, goddess energy, it's like different aspects of divine feminine that you can
Mm,
connect with. Is sadly enough because it's been millennia that we've been so empty, like there is not really good role models of what the fine
mm,
feminine
yeah.
looks, to role model after, to embody for yourself. Like, what does it really mean? And so the womb work and the journeying shamanically had actually connected me with goddess energy.
Mm,
And so that's how I know those are the defined feminine
mm,
archetypes and to what
yeah.
we know. And that's why it's shared in myth, because that's how they pass the information on in story form.
Mm.
And Inanna was the first ever goddess energy that I had connected with.
No way.
Yes. And so when you say the
She's the
descent of
Sumerian
Inanna,
Venus, isn't she? Is she the Sumerian?
Sumerian.
Yeah.
Yes. And so there is a poem that you could Google online. Just Google the descent of Inanna,
Mhm.
and you'll be
Oh,
able
going
to
in.
read.
Yeah.
Yeah, the descent. So the story, it's about her going into hell to visit her sister.
Mhm.
And so it's along her journey how she needed literally strip off all of her armors,
Mhm.
or there's another word for it. There's seven of them.
Like 7 tests.
Yes. And
Mm.
the seven, it's also a very auspicious number. Like there are seven rays in the
Yeah.
rainbow, right? And so then it's about her descent into hell or the
Mhm.
underworld. I just
Yeah.
interpret it as hell in my mind. It's the underworld. Anyways, I don't
Yeah.
want to butcher the story anymore,
No,
but
no, don't worry. I'm very good at butchering stories myself.
but that would be like an initiation, right? When you say the 40 days, 40 night.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, it all feels
initiation.
like an initiation time. If
Yes.
I'm not mistaken, does Inanna get killed by her sister and her sister comes back? Is that right? Or something like that?
Uh, yeah. She actually was stuck in the underground and she had called for help. And so it is her help that has um, came, and then she was able to
Mm.
go ascend on her
Yeah.
way out of the
Which describes the two
underworld.
Venuses, doesn't it? The evening star
Yes.
Venus and then the morning star Venus.
Yes. And also the
Fascinating, isn't
ascend
it?
of her would be
Mm.
the
Her rising
the
again.
exactly. The resurrection. It's what I come to grapple with. So similarly, how Jesus resurrected, right?
Exactly. And we have
Yes.
this with Mars as well. So there's probably some Mars stories as well.
Wow. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that beautifully, Louisa. And this is an invitation. There is more, as you said, you have um, more extended way of explaining how to work with this energy. And there's another part coming. So definitely and find and subscribe to her channel. I'll include the link in this video or wherever I'm gonna share this.
Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, it is very extended. I can waffle a little bit because I get really into my stories and I try to
I love
explain
it.
it in a way that's going to help. So, the one that I'm just about to release, which should be released by the time you're releasing this, but it's like part one of the Venus story. So really, I'm looking at the retrograde chart and the when the chart goes direct. Also talking about the Sabian symbols, and talking about what you might encounter within this journey and how you might think about it. My next one covers more of this story and it'll be released around the 20th of March, just in time for the Venus Cazimi. So it's about getting you comfortable with all the Venus energy. And then I'm hoping to run a like an open like a webinar for members next week on the 11th, when Venus and Mercury come together, because it's actually a really good day to talk about Venus because Mercury's all about chitter chatter. So it's a big deep dive into the Venus energy, and I'll be covering that with people that join me actually within their birth chart. So they can message me beforehand. We bring up the chart and look at and see how that is manifesting, because not everyone's at the same stage, and some people like to go a little bit deeper, don't they? They like to have a deep dive.
Mm.
So that's
And
what I'm
this
all about,
is
and that's what you're about as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? This is why I love the way how you speak to it because you bring this layer of like what you can think about on.
Mm,
And so for all of your content that I had consumed in the past, and I think that would be a really good way to word it. It's you always leave me a little bit of like what I could think about, for me going through that time to contemplate. So this is like a really, really, you know, bring the focus of like, okay, it helps me to remember I want to be the spiritual Whitney. So then I'm like, I remember this is what Louisa said.
mm.
I remember to think about. So then how can anyone interested in joining this workshop and joining your membership, Louisa?
Well, they just need to click on the link. So I'll send you the link. So it's a
Perfect.
link. It details what you get in the membership package. And I mean, essentially, you get. I do extra things I don't put onto my YouTube channel. So it's got exclusive content. So each month on the new moon and the full moon, I give a relationship and connection forecast for every sign of the zodiac, a career and ambition one, and I'm
Mm.
toying, depends how many, I think I'll release a little bit later, a personal growth one will come out, but I need to get into my flow first. But there'll be at least 45 minutes, probably a lot more, of unreleased content. So it's all about all the signs of the zodiac. So, lots of people, they listen to their sun sign or their ascendant sign, but it also means you can listen to, because you get access to all 12. So you can also listen to the ascendant of your partner or their moon sign or your kids. And I think that gives it some extra flexibility. You get to sort of suss out what's going on for everyone. And of course, everyone wants to know what's going on in their love life or in their career. So they get that. And then there'll be a monthly kind of check-in, and various discounts, and also it's a place where I can't really respond to everyone on my YouTube channel anymore, which is a lovely problem to have. But I also I would love to chat with everyone. And so within this community space, it's a space where you can come in, and you can just pop a question. And it's not just me that will be answering, because I really think anyone that joins this is going to be pretty serious about astrology, want to learn. So I think of it as a place where it's going to share, there's going to be a lot of sharing. We'll all be learning from each other. I mean, one thing I put my hand up about is I'm not an expert. Yeah, it's been my hobby since I was 6. But I would never say because I'm quite intuitive the way I do it. I don't do it like all the traditional astrologers do it. So, yeah, we'll all be learning from each other. I do have one takeaway for you. So you did say you
Yes.
like a takeaway. My takeaway is what was going on for you March to April of 2017? Like what internal decisions were you making March to April of 2017 that you acted on by the end of the summer? I'll share mine quickly. So the last time this Venus retrograde and the morning star Venus came up and out of her cave, um, during March and April of that year, my husband was made redundant, and we used to live on site of a beautiful 92-acre estate in Devon, England, and we were like caretakers of a charity, and he also worked for the charity. He had a radio station, and we used to assist people with additional needs and their families. And so me and the kids, because we had two small ones, we would volunteer and help out, and it was a really lovely sort of family friendly place. And we'd been living there for 5 years, and it was our home. And during that time, my husband was made redundant, and we had ideas of coming to Portugal, but we never thought it was going to manifest. We tried saving money, and we were rubbish at that. And so he was made redundant, and so we had the choice, and we were going through a real sort of deep introspective choice point. In March, we found out in March that he was going to be made redundant, or there was that opportunity. And then by the time Venus was going straight again, we said, okay, we're gonna take the redundancy and we're gonna move to Portugal. And within 2 months or 3 months, like we moved in August, September is when we moved to Portugal. But the whole process started during that Venus retrograde, but it definitely started then. And, so many months later, that was it. We were living in a new country, and it changed our life. Like, we both went into work that we wanted to do and were really passionate about doing. And that's the morning star Venus energy. It gets us physically moving, not just in our mind, but in our bodies. And we literally moved house. It was quite daring. I don't know if I'd do it again, but I'm coming into the same pattern right now. So I don't think we're going to move to another country, but I do think my husband and I are, because our charts are quite linked. I do think it's representing that we're going to both do a massive shift around that point. So that's my takeaway. What were you thinking around that time that you sort of implemented within your life? Um,
So I have a question.
Go
Can
on.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I love that you have that example to illustrate. Now, how do you take that further by examining, back in 2017, how things have worked out for you? Um, Now, how do you have that parallel to make the decisions now?
Mm.
So is that just an evidence or example of like what this planetary energy would bring you? Or is it a continuation of what happened then
Well, it
to
could be
what
both.
happened now?
That's a really good. That's So, like in my webinar next week, I'm going to be looking at specific birth charts. So, anyone that comes, if they send me their birth details, depending on how many I get, I might just choose a few, but I will definitely go through each house in the zodiac. The zodiac chart has 12 houses in, and so what I'm going to do is show different examples of where this retrograde takes place. These houses represent a different part of your life. So it was impacting the part of my life to do with children and pleasure, which I was volunteering and hanging out with my kids. It was great, fantastic time in my life. And it was the Venus retrograde went into our home and
Oh,
into how we were living and our beliefs about ourselves. Now, it touched on a few things in my birth chart that brought up about confidence issues. So the redundancy, even though it was nothing personal to us at all, it felt like we'd been kicked out of our home, and at one level, I did feel the rejection of it. I did. I felt badly about it, but really, we'd wanted to move for a long time. We loved what we were doing, and we loved it so much that we didn't really move, but we really did need to shift. And so, what manifested was wherever we were holding ourselves back, this energy turbocharged us. In particular with me, it was in such a strong place, and it was in a really strong place in Carl's chart as well, that we couldn't not move. Now, this retrograde is going over 0 Aries point, which is the equinox point. The sun's going to go over there on the 20th of March, and we're going to be into a new astrological year. But Neptune's going to go over that point soon, 3 times within the next year. So Saturn. So 0 Aries, that's like the first degree in the story of the zodiac. So cosmically, we are into a whole new story, like a really new story. And the sign of Aries is about what are we manifesting new. And then as you go through the zodiac and you come around to Pisces, the Pisces story is what are we dissolving. So Venus starting in Aries, like there's this new energy, but no, we're going back. We've got to dissolve something from the past, and then we go forwards again and we can go full steam ahead. Well, when I met my husband, it was just after Jupiter and Uranus had got together at that point, 0 Aries. And so it's a really sensitive point. Now, in my chart, it was sensitive to me because it was right on the sort of like doorway to the 5th house. And the 5th house is about love and romance and our hobbies and children. And, you know, within oh God, within a couple of weeks of my husband and I starting dating, we were already expecting our first child. So it like Jupiter makes things unexpected and quite expanded. Uranus makes things really surprising and creates change. And so those two planets coming together at 0 Aries in my chart created a massive load of change. It put me on a family pathway and a love pathway, which is what my heart was really asking for. And so that was in 2010. 2017, Venus retrograde went over that, and it changed our family's direction, with our children. So now it's coming back, but there's a load of other things going over this point. Load of other things. I'll be recording about this soon. And, if you know anyone who really wants to have a kind of map, like a blueprint for the next year ahead, I'm doing detailed zodiac maps. They're actually videos, not actual maps, but for every sign of the zodiac, there's a 1 month forecast from the 20th of March right the way through to the next 20, and it would detail all of these changes. So that's going to be released soon as well. But there's going to be some massive changes there. So from my perspective, I know that point is really super strong. So I'm just like, okay, that something has gone over that point again. It's a bit like in reflexology. If you've got a point or like you've got a funny little something or other, I don't know, like someone's got a funny little creak in their back, it's like it's getting pushed again. So it was really pushed in 2010 to create excitement and moving forwards. It was really pushed in March, April of 2017. And now Venus is pushing it. Neptune's pushing it. Saturn's pushing it. Mercury retrograde's pushing it. The sun's about to push it. It's being pushed big style. So yeah, massive changes. And so I just think you can either work with those changes or, I just think my preference is if you know what the planetary waves are doing, go with those waves. So I know there's big change coming up, and it's likely to rise our family up in a quick way, especially my aims, in particular about home and the quality of my life with my children. So I'm just open to new things, and I'm expecting new things to come in. But, it might be in a different part of your chart. It might be in the 1st house. If it's in the 1st house, that's a pretty big change as well. So anyone that's listening, if you can remember the big changes that were going on in 2010 that moved you forwards fast, and also what was going on in 2017 that moved you, but kind of rerouted you, started with an internal process of thinking things through, followed by a change, then this point is being sort of magnetized and electrified again. It's getting really, really pushed on. And the whole world's doing it at the same time. I mean, can you imagine the kind of chaos that's going to happen with like however many billions of people there are co-creating right now. I mean, that could create loads of opportunities for people to live fantastic lives. But I also think, you know, if you're not ready for a fantastic life and you're wanting to, because there are lots of people, and I've been one of them, and I probably still will be one of them. There are people that are addicted to their problems as well. And I know I've been addicted to problems and patterns, persistent patterns that I've not wanted to shift. So yeah, anyone that doesn't want to shift and is holding on to their patterns, I
It's
say
gonna,
go in peace and be okay. Because I think we're
oh
all
my
get
gosh, right?
lifted up and jiggled about and moved around a little bit.
And that's what I call hit your head on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to sign up for this webinar because as you're explaining, I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. So just to quickly share before we wrap up, 2010 is when I first signed up to a business, to start a
Mhm.
business, my first business. I
Wow.
don't do that business anymore, but into entrepreneurship. And then 2017 is when I had, um, started my shamanic apprenticeship
Hmm.
and have started taking my clients through Shamanic Journeying to do their brand strategy work.
Hmm.
And so that's why I was wondering, like, coming to 2025, what does that mean? Because just this year, I'm like, I decided to really own the
Mm.
teacher title, like where I
Yeah.
had just decided, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do this thing now. And guess what?
That's what you're
It's
doing.
on, right? Pisces. I remember Pisces. Let me just quickly look. It's on my eighth house.
Oh, right. Yeah. Big shifts
Yeah.
and
Oh,
psychological ones
sorry.
too.
Pisces is seventh. Sorry. So Pisces is my seventh house and Aries is in my eighth house.
Hmm. Yeah, so big shifts. The seventh to eighth is a big shift for sure, because the seventh house is very much about the partners. By the way, I'm not drinking blood. It looks like it. My husband's brought me in a
Thanks.
beetroot juice.
Oh,
I
God
need to be
bless
careful
him.
because I drank some the other day and started recording, and it looked like I had like a red smile.
And
And I,
with your
and
eye,
I know, and I'd recorded a whole video and I hadn't realised I'd got this like red smile.
your blood.
Like I'm always like this with my kids. Oh, for God's sake, sort your mouth out. And anyway, yeah, the seventh is about the people you draw into your life, in particular your partner, your husband, and all the besties. Like a lot of my friends seem to fit into my seventh house quite easily. So the seventh house is, you know, where we relate to people. But one thing I noticed is when Uranus was going through my seventh house, all of a sudden it was my clients. So I was bringing lots of astrology clients and internet clients because, you know, internet and astrology are both, I think they're both ruled by Uranus. And so I was getting lots and lots of people coming in. So this is a big shift in terms of the people in your life. And then as the energy moves into the eighth house, it's the baggage that they bring with them. But that also is good because it's the money that they bring, their attitudes, the healing that they bring, but also what that's bringing to you too. So, for instance, if you get inundated with clients and you know you're rising up as your clients are rising up as well, because I'm guessing you've been taking your clients on a journey. Every time you're stepping, they're stepping, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and so you're all learning together and it's a rite of passage, isn't it? So, you know, the eighth house, I think, is where we transform and we die and resurrect. And so there is the death, the dissolution, you're dissolving the old personality and the new personality is coming up. And all the guilt, shame, blame, anger, resentment, and all that kind of baggage that comes along with it. So, um, yeah, like what psychological shifts do you need to make to be able to do it peacefully for yourself? So interesting
Whoa.
times. It will be very interesting.
Oh my gosh. See, now I know like what to journal and what to focus on. So thanks, Louisa. Gosh, I
Thanks
love
for
what
giving me
you
the
do.
opportunity. Actually, you helped me get a lot more distinct. I wish I'd recorded my video after I'd just chatted with you. The video I recorded today just wasn't as directed. I'd love a copy of this if I could put this out.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And thank you again, Louisa, for sharing your time so generously with
Oh,
me.
bless. Oh, bless you. It's my pleasure.
And I will include all the links. So bye for now. Let me stop this recording.